Thank you very much. Good to meet you guys. You'll start to get to know me. I get real nervous in front of crowds. I'm just kidding, man. I'm extremely personable. I was looking over at your rules over there, and the rule number 2 was, if you're going to be loud, step outside. We're breaking that rule tonight, all right? Because I'm going to be probably one of the loudest guys you have. It's my personality. It's something that I learned early on, that when you're building a business and self-evaluating who you are, just be yourself, right? I had a guy, I wasn't going to open it with this, but I had a guy when I was coming out of college, University of Maryland, 1998, my first job, and he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, it was like the second meeting I ever had, and the guy turns to me and he goes, "Oh, you're so loud. Quiet down," right? And I'm 21 years old, and I'm green, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, this is who I am. And I went back to my office at the time in Northern Virginia, and I said, you know what? This is me. This is who I'm going to be. And when I started my business in 2004, I was very adamant that if you don't like who I am, that's okay. I knew who I am as a person, and just be you, right? Be yourself. You guys have, I'm sure, a ton of creative, great ideas. Be yourselves. Don't try to be somebody else. I think that's the key. That's one of the big keys when starting out as an entrepreneur. Know exactly who you are. So I want to give you, and first off, I really want this to be interactive. Honestly, if I were sitting in your shoes, and if you said something and you were standing up here, I'd want you to interrupt, right? I'd want you to, I'd want to be able to say questions. If you have something or something pops up, ask, right? Because I'm here. This is the reason I'm here, right? I'm a 1998 graduate of the University of Maryland. I believe in giving back, right? Student affairs for me at the University of Maryland is huge. I was a undergrad. I was in the Greek community. I was in Sigma Chi at the University of Maryland. I believe in the Greek community. I believe in the University of Maryland. My wife and I, once we sold the business, established an endowment here at the University of Maryland to grow leadership. I mean, it was all about growing great leaders. So I'm happy to be here. I'm literally less than 6 weeks into this brand, and I'll talk about the brand a little bit and why I'm only 6 weeks into it. But it's great to be amongst all of you. I can tell you when I was at the University of Maryland, as far as I knew, this didn't exist, right? The fact that young entrepreneurs come together and sit in a room and discuss ideas and strategies and how do I get funding, or how do I bootstrap a business, or how do I do this, or if I get a business like you did with WeCook and I have a great opportunity to exit that business early, when do I exit, right? Those are huge things, and those are huge questions. Well, I was fortunate enough to do that. I was not a computer sci major. I was not an engineering major. I never took a business class at the University of Maryland. I was a political science major. I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I thought that's where I wanted to be. I'm humble background. My father was in law enforcement. My mother was a school educator. There were no entrepreneurs per se in my family. I'm going to talk a little bit about this brand that I'm building briefly. We call it the Luzio versus Everybody brand. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my story. I'm going to talk a little bit of how we got the company going, a little bit about what that company was, talk about some pivotal points that happened during the time that I grew it when, shit really hit the fan, and you have to figure out, you're going to sink or you're going to swim. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the exit of the business and why I exited. And I'll talk a little bit more about the financial numbers here in a second. So the brand that we're building, this LVE brand, this Luzio versus Everybody brand, it's really a philosophy that I've had near and dear to my heart my whole life. It's been that, and I'm going to insert you guys in here in a second. For me, it's always been, you can't do this, or you can't, or you shouldn't, or why would you do this? You've got a great career. Why would you go start a business? You don't know anything about business. What makes you think you can do this? And this goes all the way back to when I was a kid. I mean, this roots all the way back to when I was in 3rd grade, when a teacher told my mother in a parent-teacher conference that the problem with your son is that he wants to be the greatest at every single thing he does. And my mother turned to that person, that teacher, who's long gone, so I can make fun of her now, said, because I'm 40, right? So I think she's gone. She was about 70 then. My mother turned to her and said, well, isn't that what you want out of your students? Don't you want them to be the best? And she said, yeah, but what Michael has to realize is he's not the best. He's not the best in math, or he's not the best in reading. And my mother came home and told me that story, and I was 8 years old. I have 8-year-old twins and a 4-year-old right now, and they're in 3rd grade, and she told me that story. And that story stuck with me, right? That you can't do this, or you can't be great at that. Look, I knew from an early age I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. I wasn't going to be an astronaut. Like, I was able to self-evaluate and figure out what I was good at. But I always felt like it was everybody against me. And when I sit in a room with young entrepreneurs, or I sit in a room, I'm speaking out in California in 2 weeks to a group of about 200 to 300 project managers of Silicon Valley, I look at those individuals and I say, you feel that same pain I do. I'm sure so many people look at you and say, I don't know about your idea, right? I don't know if we cook. Is that a good idea? I'm sure you got people going, he's out of his mind. Like, what is he doing, right? It's you versus everybody, right? And I've always had that mentality. And the reason I build this brand, this Luzio versus everybody mentality, is I feel like a lot of people feel like that. Everybody is against you, right? Now, you've got an amazing group, right, where you can collaborate. But once you walk outside of these walls, I'm sure there's people, naysayers and doubters, right? So my primary focus for Luzio versus everybody was when I sold the business in 2013 and stayed on for 3 more years, I sold it for, we started the business and bootstrapped it, and I'll talk about that process, with $15,000 in 2004. And we sold it in 2013 for just short of $60 million. No outside investment, all bootstrapped. A couple equity partners, I being an equity partner and the CEO of that organization, we came up with 15 grand and we started this thing, right? It was about, we had an idea. We embraced this idea. I remember I was living in New York City and I had a good job. I was 27 years old. And it wasn't the idea for my company, which was called IRG, wasn't my original idea. It was somebody else's. And they came to me and they said, I've got an idea. And I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur, but boy, I was sitting in this corporate world and I'm going, this is very difficult for me. It's difficult for me to listen to authority. Not that I was better than people or what have you, but it was, hey, I think there's something more in me here. I just do. I believe I'm destined for something bigger than where I was at. And again, I had a great job in Manhattan. And I took a leap of faith, right? And I made we took the opportunity and said, we're going to incorporate this business. We didn't seek outside capital. We had a little of our own capital. Again, 27, not that I had a lot, but we had some capital. And we decided to build this company called Industry Retail Group. Now, I'm going to go back and fast forward a little bit. In 2000, and you guys were, oh my God, young in 2000 if alive, right? That was the dot-com boom, right? That was when the internet was just coming out. And I worked for dot-com companies, or one in particular. And I watched this dot-com company grow. And this was when money was being thrown at businesses. I mean, it was like you had an idea, right? Money was just getting thrown at you. As long as it said internet somewhere within that name and it was a half-decent idea, someone was giving you $50 million, right? And these organizations were going public and building themselves. And I worked for a company where I was doing great at, but I watched them growing this business, and I saw this arrogance in the senior management. And I saw them take the company public, and I was employee 30. And by the time it was at its height, it was 1,000 people. And I saw the guy take it public, and I saw the stock go to like $37. And he had an offer on the table from AT&T for something like $800 million. He owned 51% of the business. He didn't take it. He did not take it, right? Saying, whoa, man, that's a lot of money, right? 6 months later, year later, Stock was 38, it was now 2 cents. It's done, right? I learned at that point that if I ever did something on my own, that was never going to happen to me. But yeah, that was 2001, 2000. I mean, I was still 24 years old. We moved forward. IRG is born. We bootstrapped it. It was take $15,000. We had no office space. It was me in my basement, my COO at the time in his basement, and my CTO, all super bright people, sitting in their basements. And we said, we got an idea and we're going to build this. No customers, no references, and really no money. But we had an idea. I'll briefly share the idea and what it was. You know, our thing was in 2004, the internet was starting to become much bigger in the business world, meaning businesses were starting to look to integrate internet into their locations. But it was still very infant, and believe it or not, it really was in 04. And we looked at the retail space, and when I mean retail, I mean brick and mortar retail companies. And we looked at those companies and said, you know what, at some point, these guys are going to need to put internet in their stores for a multitude of reasons. Credit card processing, potentially mobile point of sale down the road, which is now hitting now. They're going to need this. They're going to need to build secure wide area network infrastructures in these retail stores. And the way we looked at it was, hey, we didn't have to knock on every door, right? We could knock on one corporate door and maybe get 50 sites to say, let's put in the VPN firewall and the switches and the internet and the this and the that. And it was a good idea because the big companies weren't doing it. It was a niche space. I knew the big boy companies weren't doing it because it was low-hanging fruit, but I believed there was a market there. And that was the idea. And we walked into our first retailer at the time, which was 15 locations. Mind you, remember, we sold the business for upwards of 60 million, so we kind of grew up market. And I remember walking in, and you guys are probably in some of these positions, and I want to ask you a little bit about where you're at in some of your processes, because I think it's big. But I walked into that first prospect. The guy's name was Mike Neff. I never forget a customer. And Mike Neff said, so what are you here to do? And I said, this is what we want to do. We want to revolutionize your stores because you're running on antiquated systems, et cetera, stuff that you guys probably wouldn't even know what these guys were running on. And he said, well, who are your customers? And my answer was, I don't have any. Who are your references? My answer was, I don't have any. He says, what? Why should I believe you? I mean, what? But it was a great idea, and he believed in us. And in 2004, we got our first customer, and it was like nothing, right? But we knew we had a viable idea that we could take to market, right? And to you guys, while you're sitting here, a lot of you in your early stages and your thought processes around this, if you believe in your idea, if you work your passion, right? That's my big thing, right? If you have a passion for something, get after it. Work your passion, right? We did, and we did. And in 04, we started the business, bootstrap. And then it was a 15-site customer, and then it was a 50-site customer, and then it was an 80-site customer. And then by the time we had 4 or 5 customers, of course, my whole thing is walking into the next prospect was, hey, well, we got this guy, and this guy. And they're like, oh, okay, so you got those 3. They must be legitimate. Well, those were my only 3 customers, but that's all I had to stand on, right? And we kept growing it. And man, this internet thing, right, wow, it started to pick up. And these stores realized they need big bandwidth. If they're going to put in wireless, mobile point of sale, they're going to put voice over IP, they're going to need bigger pipes, they're going to need secondary backups. Oh my gosh, the firewalls need to make sure that the data is encrypted, right? That stuff needs to happen because when those credit cards go through, this is before the Target breaches and all that, those are huge, right? That was huge. So we had this kind of innovative idea that the big guys weren't doing. But we're plugging along. We're building the business. And then, again, this is a little young for you guys, but in 2008, the market crashes, right? Done, right? My business was retail. I was going after, if you go into the mall, like people would ask, well, who's your potential prospects? I'd go to the mall, look at the directory. Those were my prospects. I mean, from Gap to the Old Navies, the American Eagles, whoever was on that, those were our targets. That market crashed, right? We had just hired what we call he was our CFO, but he wasn't full-time, right? There's these floating CFOs that come help out companies that needed it, and we needed a CFO. And he walked into our first meeting, and I was sitting in front of about 25 employees at the time that we had in 2008. And we were going to do our annual meeting. Super excited, right? I'm like, yeah. CFO walks in and he goes, we're going to be bankrupt. 3 months. We're done. We're bleeding cash. We're bleeding $75,000 a month. Now, something in that area. And he walks in, tells us this, and then I have to walk into the meeting. Then literally, I'm not kidding, 2 minutes later, and look at these 25 faces and be positive, right? And then walk out of that meeting and go, what are we going to do as an organization? And we made drastic moves, and that drastic move was not to fire one person in that room, but the executives took a complete cut, 0 of all their salaries for a year, right? I knew we had a really good business. I knew that the market was going to shift. It had to, right? It hit rock bottom, but we had a good business. We had some really good prospects out there. They were ready to come on board, but in 2008, the drastic measure was, look, I believe in myself. I believe in this business. Cut it out completely. No salary. And that was the executive team. And we all believed in it, right? And I'll talk about it, like leading versus managing, right? We all led. We had a vision. Anybody can manage a group of people. Anybody could sit there and say, do this, do that. You know, listen to me. You have to empower your people. And for the executive team to say, we believe in this, and to cut, we knew that we were leading as an organization. 2008, 2009 hits, it starts to get better, we climb back up, and then we really start hitting, right? We start hitting our stride. You know, we weren't this company who had this amazing idea or an app or what have you. We were a company who built a repeatable, sustainable process for our customers, right? Big thing I think that's lost in business today is that personal touch, right? People talk about soft versus hard. What am I thinking? Soft versus hard.
Hard business skills versus soft skills.
Yeah, hard business skills versus soft business skills. So like hard business skills. I mean, we all got hard business skills, but then there's the soft ones, right? People buy from people. I promise you that, right? There's got to be that personality side to it, right? We were so good at massaging that personal side of it and treating our customers like Carlton, right? That customer intimacy company. That's who we were. Wrap our arms around them. Treat them well. And in 2009, that really started to pay off. And we took off. We took off as a business. And look, I always say this, half lucky or half smart, it didn't matter, right? The market really started to realize that they needed us a lot. We were this boutique company. The bigger guys were starting to do it, but they did a really shitty job of it, right? So we took off. So 2009, 2010, 13, now we're hiring like crazy. We're bringing on people. Still continued to bootstrap, right? Still continued not to take an outside dollar. All the while private equity is calling literally me every day. I'd get a call from a new PE firm. We want to invest. We want PC. I was like this. I was like blinders, right? We were pulling very good money out of the business and what have you. But what kept resonating in my head was that guy in 2000 who had a company he could have sold and crushed it and didn't, right? What was he thinking? I get a call in 2012 from a public company and a very reputable CEO, $700 million company, public. And he said, I want to meet with you. And I took the meeting, right? I'm big about taking meetings. I mean, I know I talked about not talking these private equity meetings, but it's the reason I'm sitting here in front of you. Like, I want you guys to gain from this. I want you guys to take a little piece of everything. You know, when I talk to you guys, hopefully get a little Q&A later, I can gain some stuff from you, but I take the meeting from this guy. And I fly. He was up in Toronto, and he was down in Charlotte, and I do the dance with him, and he offers me X amount of dollars for the business, and it would have set me up for life. And I said, I should do this deal. I'm a neophyte, right? I don't know anything about selling a business, right? I know how to build one, grow one, lead one, but I don't have a business degree. I don't have an MBA. I'm learning as I go. as the deal starts moving forward, and this is a lesson for everybody to learn in the room, he offered me this, and as we got closer, the truck started pulling forward, and money just started falling out of the back. So by the time we got to the point when it was time to sell the business, that money that he had offered was like this, right? You know, it was half of what it was. I turned to and it was still great money. And I turned to my wife, who's, you know, having a great support system, surrounding yourself with great people. I have an amazing wife. And I said, I'm pulling out of this deal because the company's still doing this. I know it's going to set us up for life, but I believe that we can do better. But goodness, I got a little taste of that, right? I got a little taste of what it's like to potentially be a millionaire, right? And you're going, oh my God, right? So I make the decision. January of 13, I make the decision to hire a firm out of Silicon Valley to sell my business. I hired a firm to me that represented me the best. This was a deal team that was going to go out, get X percentage of the sale of the company, and walk into private equity and strategic buyers and find those guys for me and put me in front of those guys and try to sell the company. Well, the beautiful thing about the business in 13 was we were going like this. And I started, and we went on a road show. This is where you hear people talking about road shows and selling your business. So I'm running a business, and I'm selling a business at the same time, and no one knows I'm selling it. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. My daughter was 1. She was 6 months old. I don't remember anything from 6 months to a year. I sold the business on her first birthday. Don't remember anything, and it was a road show. It was 14 hours of working the business and 6 hours of selling. My wife didn't know me. No one knew me. It was awful. It's worth it, right? It's worth it now, right? But it was tough. But I went out on these road shows, and the business is literally just going up and to the right. And you're going, all right, great, great, great. And everything we said was going to happen as we're going through the road show was happening. Closing this deal, big deal, that deal, this deal, this deal. So the beautiful thing is now we've got private equity firms going, we'll pay this, we'll pay Y, we'll pay that. At the end of the day, we had 18 offers on the table for the business. Mostly private equity. You guys all know what PE is. Some strategic, you know, which is a strategic, either publicly or privately traded company is going to buy you. And we signed an LOI, which is a letter of intent, to go with a private equity firm. Within 2 weeks of that, it was May of 13, I was like, this is awful. Like, I'm going to kill myself. These guys are already running me wild, and I don't even work for them. And yet again, if you go back 6 months, this was now a 20% increase. So now it's even more money than what I was getting offered then. And it was a mutual decision, but we backed out. We pulled out. I called my wife from Minneapolis. These are these pivotal moments. It's like, I pulled out again. You know, my wife's like, I'm trying to get the F word out of my vocabulary. So, but I said, what the? That's what she said. That was in Minneapolis. I was out pitching a customer with my team. Pulled out, and we decided to go with a strategic vendor, a company out of Pittsburgh, which was a perfect match and a fit for our organization. And so for the last 3 years, since I sold it in 13, I've been helping to transition that business, all with the intent of moving forward with something else in 2000 and now, right, August of now. And to me, this brand that we're building felt like the most logical thing to do. Again, 3 choices. Retire, right? I was 39. I just turned 40. I'm like, I think you can tell by my personality that shit was not happening, right? I was not going to retire. 2, go be the CEO of a $20 million company, grow it, take a nice salary, take 8% of the business, grow it to 100 million, sell it again, have another exit. Could have done that. But then I decided that what I really love to do is this. I love sitting in front of a room and talking about how to build a business, right? And I went real high level, but this is what I like to do. I got paid. I'm good, right? I'm not a greedy person. You know, I don't have aspirations of being a billionaire. I have aspirations of inspiring, right? I have aspirations of sitting in rooms like you, with you guys, sitting in rooms with corporations who are stagnant, they need that extra kick in the ass. Like, that's what gets me, right? What inspires me is if you walk up to me after this speech and say, holy shit, I wasn't thinking like that, or I was, and I'm going to change some of the way I'm thinking. Or if you say that, or if anyone says that, if you say that, like, how great is that for me? So I'm building this brand because I want to see all of you, literally, succeed. I think we need more of that here in this country. I definitely do. We need more of you. We need more entrepreneurial spirit. And the fact that you guys sit in here and collaborate in a room and talk about these things and have guest speakers come here and have these conversations, to me is awesome. I really appreciate you guys letting me come in here and talk a little bit about my story. But I'd really like to, hear some of your stories. I mean, this story's awesome. The We Cook story, took a year off. I mean, balls, right? That took balls, right? You took a year off from school and you make the decision to go out and you make a little coin, right? It wasn't not this mass exodus, but you learn the process, right? So I'll close it with this. What this school gave me, the University of Maryland, was an incredible foundation, I believe this with all my heart, to get where I am today. I've had tremendous mentors, certainly before Maryland, at Maryland, some that are still here, right? I'm on campus tomorrow. I'm a department chair for student affairs, where I'm going to speak in front of a lot of different people. This is a great foundation. What you guys have built here is awesome. What you guys are doing here is tremendous. I want to see you succeed. I want to help mentor anybody who needs help mentoring. And hopefully what you'll see over the course of the next 3 years is me building this brand, because, again, most businesses are not built overnight. And if you do, great, that's awesome. You create something and sell it and make a ton of money, that's great, right? But you have to realize sometimes it takes time. You're at the infancy stages of a lot of your business, and it's not just going to go. And if you see the guy or the gal next to you and they're flourishing quicker than you are, let's tell you something, man. It doesn't matter. If you have a belief, if you work your passion, if you get after it, you can get there, right? So don't get discouraged if Jane or Jim is farther along or has gotten this. Listen, tough break. Sometimes there's luck involved. I actually don't believe in luck, but there is luck. Shit happens, man. Right place, right time. Got to work your passion, and you got to get after it. So that's kind of my message to you. One Maryland grad to probably future grads, maybe a couple post-grads. I'd welcome and really appreciate if any of you guys have questions for me. So, hit it.
Yeah, so one of the hardest things any company experiences, right, particularly when they're about to grow, is hiring strategically.
Yep.
And what I'm curious about was your own experiences in getting together a team, not only for the company, but positioning yourself for expansion.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I touched on it a little bit. Does anyone know who Gary Vaynerchuk is? Anyone know? You guys know some Vayner guys in here? Right? So you guys should check him out. Right? I mean, if you want to talk about social media gurus of today's age, an entrepreneur and best time seller, he's amazing. So I don't want to take his idea, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about it, right? It's that idea of self-evaluation and knowing who you are, right? I get that I'm not an engineer, right? I get it, right? And by the way, I'm really good with computers, right? But what I am good at is finding those individuals who can buy into my beliefs and who are really good at one side of the business. So if you want to build a business for explosive growth, you have to be able to look inside yourself and say, this is who I am, and then step over here and say, this is who I'm not, and find those people that where you're not, find those people to fill that spot, right? Leading versus managing, anybody can say, do it, do that, do this, right? Leaders bring in and collaborate. They get the idea that you have, that vision or passion that I had, that you have, that you had, and you get them to buy into it. It's difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, but you have to find those individuals. If you like this skill set that you have and you don't like this skill set, somebody does like that skill set. Find that person who's passionate about that. Surrounding yourself with A-team players is great. I talk about being, I'm in 7th gear at all times. That's great. You can never run a business as everyone's like me. It's impossible, right? I mean, we butt heads all day long. Right? I'm in 7th. Honest to God, this is exactly how I am at all times. It's insane. It's very difficult to be married to me because I'm like this. And I've never had a cup of coffee in my entire life, and I don't drink caffeine, right? Which is insane, right? But you have to find those people who believe in your idea, and you can supplement them into areas that they're better than you at. And that is how we did it. And I surrounded myself with amazing team members, and I'm sad that I'm no longer there. It hurts because that was my family. It was my baby. I did it for, damn near 12 and a half years. But now I'm here, sitting here talking to you guys. Right? Yep. Hit it. Uh-huh. Great question. So the question was, political science degree, how did you build a business even though you had a poli-sci degree? And then the second part of that question was, yeah, it's completely, like 180, right? Not 180, maybe 140. So, yeah, I mean, political science degree. I mean, look, I learned more at the University of Maryland, dare I say it, Reggie, outside of the classroom. I really did. I mean, this group that you're in, I hate to say this, I probably shouldn't say this, but I should, because even though it's part of the University of Maryland, it is, you are a community. This is where I learned my craft, right? Like in student-run organizations. I mean, I was a good student, don't get me wrong, and political science major and what have you, but this is where I did it. And I'll take it back to my days. I was a fraternity president, right? At that time, it was the largest fraternity on campus. It was like 150 active members, 50 guys living in the house, 2 working toilets, right? I mean, it's insane. Collecting dues. I'm not kidding. One time there was 1, but that's a whole other story. That was my first business. I mean, I'm collecting dues from no one wants to pay them, rent. We had meal plans. We had a chef that was, full-time. And I remember, and I certainly was an outgoing, popular guy in the fraternity, but once I became the president of that fraternity, man, they're still my friends, but I'm running the show there, man. And look, even today it's even crazier, right? With the stuff that happens and how the scrutiny and it's much better now. But I was running my first business. I got a taste. And I said, hey, if I can control this house of 50 guys, maybe I can take that in to the business side of the house. So, hell, man, poli-sci was great. Look, I had great professors. I can remember a lot of them. They were terrific. I took one business class. I took Accounting 101, and I took that at a community college in New Jersey in the summer because I didn't want to take it here. But to the second question, evolution of your business. First off, you have to recognize that, well, if you don't recognize your business is going to evolve, you're dead in the water, man. I mean, shit, especially in this day and age. Maybe in this, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't a kid in the 70s and 80s, but now with how rapidly technology changes, pal, you got to be on top of your game and ready to be agile. We were so good, this little boutique niche thing that we did of being able to move with our customers. We listened to our customers. I mean, big companies, this is why your ideas can trump the big companies, because most of these big organizations, they're just too damn bureaucratic to do what you're probably thinking. Like, I'll just go back to yours because we had a brief conversation. Like, I'm sure there were big companies that could have come up with this idea, but they're just too friggin' bureaucratic. They can't get there. Beat them to the punch. Evolve. And as our business grew, I mean, we would listen. Our decision makers were the CIOs in those organizations. I had all C-level contact at all times, all CIOs. And I would listen to what they'd say. Hey, we're looking for this. And I'm like, hey, man, we're a $20, $30 million company. We can do that. If they went to a big company, an IBM, and look, no disrespect to IBM and their, 80,000 employees or whatever they have, they can't move. We could. We listen and we move. So pivoting as an organization was key. And it'll be key for you. If you have these ideas and somebody comes to you and says, hey, you can make it better, do me a favor. Don't be bullheaded, right? I can talk. I love to sit in front of talk, but honest to God, one of the best things that I do is listen. I really do listen, and you need to listen. The fact that you have your peers around you and having these conversations, holy shit, I would have loved to have that. I really would have. But yeah, man, did it change? Yeah, like we were selling like broadband in 2004, and then we developed into this huge managed services company that was PCI compliant, that was monitoring credit card processing, and I mean, it was like we had one thing, and by the end, we had a suite of services that were like this. So absolutely, you need to pivot 100%, right? Don't be stupid, right? I mean, just there's people that are smarter than you. Listen to them, you know? I'm telling you that. I don't care if you're that smart. Trust me, there's someone smarter. Yeah.
What is the conversation like when you get acquired? What is the conversation like with the 25 employees?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, by the time we got acquired, it was much larger. 25 was 2008. That was when I was shitting my pants that we were going to go bankrupt, right? That was that horrible time. No. What was the conversation? Huh.
Is that it? Like, as the company knows that IT's acquired and whatnot, are the employees still working with you? Or?
Yeah, good question. So, 4 people knew we were selling the business. COO had equity, CTO had equity, CFO did not have equity, but I wasn't a money guy, right? I needed him, right? We called him the old white hair, right? I had a guy who had white hair who was a really good accountant, and when I walked into a meeting with him and they see this insanely passionate New Jersey kid come up there and give him this great idea, and they either go one of 2 ways. Oh my God, I'm joining up, or holy shit, this guy's out of his mind. But I would sit Glenn beside me in the meeting, this is a great lesson, who was super bright and was 60 or whatever he was. God, I don't know, he might have been 90. I don't have no idea how old Glenn was. Shit, I mean, he's still living, I know that. But he would sit in this meeting, it was like my father, right, sitting in this meeting with me. But when God's honest truth, he used to be on the website. I mean, he had legitimately, my business partner back there, Chris, has white hair. It was even whiter. Look, everyone, take a look at him back there. And by the way, it said he graduated in 2005. He didn't. He got out in 98. He loved it when it said that on the bio. But yeah, 4 people knew, because I needed, well, certainly anyone who had equity needed to know. And certainly the CFO, I needed him, right? Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. This guy was bright. Again, not that I wasn't bright, but he was the XO's guy. At the time when I knew it was close, like, dare I say imminent, right? But by the way, in business, and you'll learn this, and you're young and you're green, never say a deal's done until it's signed, right? Trust me on that one, right? Don't be going out and spending money. There's a great line in oh shit, I'm going to quote Top Gun. I mean, oh my God, I'm way, but you know, don't cash checks your body can't write. Is that it, Chris, right? Listen, trust me, guys. The deal's not done until it's signed on the dotted. Matter of fact, deal's not done until there's money in the bank, right? I mean, I sold the business. I was thinking, oh my God, the wire hit, oh my God, right? 4 people, 3 weeks before it looked to be imminent, I brought in the executive team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. That was director of business administration. That was the director of operations. That was the director of engineering. A couple other people. Brought them into a meeting and said, hey, we're doing this. I don't think anyone had any idea. We were really good about it. And that was a tough conversation, right? At IRG, we had built a cult-like presence. There is absolutely no doubt. I mean, I know this. Those people, as I would for them, would walk on hot coals and through a burning building for our organization. And by the way, it started with leadership. I worked my ass off. If you think you're going to build a business and sit on your ass and work 8 hours a day, find another career, right? I'm just being serious. I mean, good. Look, again, if you do and you get lucky, great. But look, I never looked at luck as a strategy. Never is, never will be for me. It was, I only know one speed. It's go hard. But I brought those people in the room, and it was a very, very difficult discussion. And, you saw some tough faces. Look, it was the right thing. Look, I'm not going to say I wasn't selfish. It was definitely the right thing for me. I believe still to this day it was the right thing for the company. It was a great merger of two organizations that complement each other very, very well, but it was difficult. And when we announced the sale, let's call on August 15th of 13 via a conference call. Oh, by the way, did I tell you guys I never had an office? Oh, never had an office. We never had a physical office. Everyone was remote. All right? That's a whole other conversation, right? But it was a tough call. And I felt bad. But I will tell you something that I'm very proud of, and this is the God's honest truth. So August 15th was the sale. We were wealthy. It was a Wednesday. Never forget it. My daughter's first birthday. On August 16th, I'm at my desk working 6 o'clock in the morning. I call my COO and my CTO. They're both working. 6 a.m. We just cashed a large check. We went right back to work. Why did I go back to work on August the 16th and work just like I'd always been working? Because I wanted to prove to that organization who bought us, you bought a great business, right? There goes that Luzio versus everybody. I looked at it and said to myself, you bought a great business. I'm going to still outwork you. Even though I got all this money, I'm still going to outwork you. So it was difficult. And by the way, it's still difficult today. And it's even more difficult, I think, now that I'm out of the business. I am. But it's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah.
How did you determine your activities? Like you said, you have a personal value when you decided how much you would get and how much you would get?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, look, equity shareholding and distribution of the organization is huge, but you establish that all up front. I mean, look, maybe I guess I do have to tell you this. You got good lawyers, right? You got to have good contracts drawn up between each of the partners, right? I mean, that's essential, right? There were 3 equity shareholders in this business, all who had say in what was going to happen in the business. You need to sit down with a good lawyer, and if anyone needs one, I'm happy to recommend to them. And by the way, my lawyers were in Maryland, right? Even though I was based out of New Jersey, our guys are right here in Baltimore, and they're tremendous, and they continue to be tremendous to us today because we still work with them. I still work with them. You got to draw it up, man. Don't leave nothing to chance. I mean, you can walk into any situation, and I mean, pinky swear and all that shit don't work. It's got to be drawn up. Go ahead. 2004. Who put in the most money? Who's the loudest guy? Like, where was the First off, I was never going to be the CTO. That shit was not happening, right? And I probably could have been the COO of the business, but that would have been very difficult too, because my brain's like, right? We sat down in a room and said, okay, you're putting in this, you're putting in Y, you're putting in this, dude. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I didn't think we were going to get, we were trying to, look, now I look at a company and I say, you build a company to sell it. I mean, that's my opinion. It doesn't need to be yours. I've sat down with CEOs who've said, I'm building a company because I want a legacy and I want to run it for the next 50 years. That's awesome. Not my philosophy, right? My philosophy was build a company to sell it. So I don't think we had any idea we were going to get to where we were. So you know what? It was kind of luck. I wish I had a better formula. But it was like sitting in a room going, all right, I'll take this. You throw in this amount of cash, you throw in this. I'll buy the computers. I mean, we did it. It was napkins, and then we got lawyers involved. So my answer probably stinks, but that's the answer. All right? Hit it.
When you first started out, like, what were your biggest obstacles as far as like working together as a team, just between the executives? Secondly, with the 15,000 you started out with, what did that go towards?
What did that go towards? That's a good question. So what did the 15,000 go towards? And what was the biggest obstacle about working with the 3 people? I'll be completely honest with you. We really picked good individuals who knew their strengths. CTO and I would butt heads, absolutely, because I would go into a CIO and say, "Oh, we'll do it." No, you're a lot of computer science engineering guys in here. I'd say, "Well, we got that," and I'd walk out, and my CTO would go, "Dude, what the hell did you just say?" And I'd be like, "I'll just go make it happen." So that did happen, friction. My COO and I, Maryland grad, 97, 5 arguments, 12 years. Meshed, found the right people, right? I mean, look, I'm a fiery guy, right? Again, I am like this all the time, so now get me when I'm pissed off, right? It's awful, right? There were those times when I'd get on a call and say, I'd be pissed, right? Especially talking to those two. But you know what? You just gotta, I had to realize when it came to the operational side, what Joe was doing, man, he was really good at that. And I would offer up my opinions and my advice, but I let him run his shop. You kind of got to let people do it until you have to step in, right? And my CTO, my God, I mean, he could have told me plug into this router or do this, and I'd have been like, okay, I didn't know, right? But what'd the $15,000 go to? The $15,000 went to laptops, IP phones, registering at the time it was a C Corp that we later made an S Corp, tax reasons completely at a certain time, and legal fees. Like, we needed phones, computers, contracts. And we did that. And full disclosure, like the contracts we would put in front of customers, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, we have to edit this out, but I just was working for a big organization, and I basically kind of plagiarized the other contract. I just changed a few words, and I'm like, here's this one, because I knew it was going to cost me $50,000 to write a contract, so I kind of just took theirs, and they were a billion-dollar company. I'm like, this has got to be pretty good. It's the God's honest truth. Listen, when you're starting a business, and you're bootstrapping it, and no one's coming to you saying, here's $2 million, go hire, counsel to write this contract. Hey, man, kind of make it work with what it was. Ty, that may need to come out. I don't know. All right. Anyone? No one's doing a little Snapchat in here, right? No, it's fine. It's fine. I don't know. But that's what we did. That was it, right? When we were building the organization, we leveraged other companies' facilities. Like when we were putting in broadband, I was striking deals up with Verizon and Comcast and all these guys. When we were putting in firewalls and switches and wireless APs, we were going out to the Ciscos and the Fortinets and the those types of people of the world and establishing relationships. Man, it was hard. It was always hard. But man, I loved it, right? It was the thrill of the kill, right? It was awesome for me. Best thing ever for me, most fulfilling part of my day was walking in and knowing that I just closed this multi-million-dollar deal, pat myself on the back, I'd wake up the next day and go, who's next, right? That's just kind of my personality. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Yep.
So what went into your decision-making to rely on natural growth rather than trying to rely on any money that was being thrown at you from all different kinds of investors? Yeah,
it's a good question. So natural growth versus either VC, seed, private equity. I had great mentors. Mentors are huge. I had great mentors that I learned from that kind of said to me, if you can bootstrap this thing yourself and not take outside capital, by the way, there's nothing wrong with outside capital. I bet if I'd taken outside capital, we'd have probably grown it 3 times the size. I would have given up some of the control. But I was listening to people, mentors that I had that had built businesses, and I said, if I can bootstrap it myself and keep control of this business as long as I can, I'm going to. And by 13, it was time. Okay, it was time to go. Make sense? All right, good?
Okay, well,
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And hit me up on LinkedIn, all right? Love to hear your stories.